What's going on, y'all? You're back. I'm your host, Paco, and you're listening to Occupy the Media. I want to thank you if you're tuning in. And please spread the word out on Facebook, YouTube, wherever that we do have Parliamentarian Steve Parent on the line with us. He's going to be taking your questions, pretty much going to give him the floor and go through this delicate process. And also, don't forget, also tuning in, and after the show, we will also be at RonPaulTribune.com. Scroll down, click on the voice chat, and you can join us in there, a bunch of us in there tuning in, and he'll also be taking some more questions after the show if he didn't get a chance to get to you. Okay, so, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and keep an eye here on the chat, give you the floor. Where do you want to start at?
I think the first thing that I actually want to start at is this shadow party talk. A lot of people are really up in arms about it, and I think it's because they really don't understand what a shadow party actually is. And it's definitely not as serious as everybody thinks that it is, in their own opinion. A shadow party essentially, let me just put it in perspective. Ron Paul supporters took over the chair, and the officer positions in the entire state of Nevada. So they basically control the entire Republican Party of Nevada for the next 4 years after this particular presidential primary. So what happened is the Romney campaign realized that he did not have the strong support that he would have should it had been a Romney delegation in Nevada. So a shadow party is basically set up to do two things. Number one, it's to help that candidate to raise money. Now, you would say, well, why do you need a shadow party for that? Well, they don't want to raise the money directly through the Nevada GOP because they don't feel that that money is going to be spent towards his candidacy should he become the nominee and run against Barack Obama. So they've set up this shadow party so they can put the funds directly into it so they know that money will go to be spent on him should he get the nomination. And number two, it allows them to organize and coordinate with the Romney campaign without going through the Nevada GOP, but the RNC in general can designate people to help him, aid him in his election bid, again, should he become the nominee of the Republican Party to go up against Barack Obama.
Okay, I think we do have here a question, too. Someone just put up in the chat. Steve, if you don't mind me jumping into that real quick. It says here, Michigan GOP 11th, the chairman of my district convention nominated a rules committee, which then recognized and they reported out with a set of rules crafted to favor the establishment slate for national delegates. Is a motion on orders of the day in order? And would that then require them to show 2/3 support to add the rules committee to the agenda?
Well, no, you're asking a couple of different questions here. You can ask for the orders of the day at any point during a convention. The orders of the day are essentially the agenda that has been put in place to talk about what type of business the convention is going to pertain to. So it's kind of like a list of, first we're going to elect a chair, then we're going to elect a secretary, then we're going to have new business, then we're going to elect delegates. I think everybody kind of gets the point, or at least I hope that they would. But asking for the orders of the day doesn't even require a second. It's not voted on. They actually have to be supplied to you. So I really don't understand what the question is, and if whoever's in the chat room can maybe elaborate on what they're talking about, that would be fine. Now, is a motion on orders, okay, I got that. Would that then require them to show 2/3 support? Now, to amend the rules that have already been put into the agenda, okay, for that day, or to suspend the rules would absolutely require a 2/3 majority. So if they wanted to suspend their own rules and do their own type of rules, you absolutely have to have a 2/3 majority to be able to do that. You cannot do it any other way.
Okay. Now, in regards to that shadow party, we also jotted down that we had people in the chat asking if you thought it was legal.
Well, there is some questionability as to rule number 11 under the RNC call, to where the RNC cannot either support financially or in any other way or promote a candidate until the nomination process is done and they become that nominee. Now, obviously, not only Ron Paul, but even Rick Santorum, and as far as I know, even Newt Gingrich has not ended his campaign. I think they've only suspended, so they still are active candidates. Now, that would violate Rule 11, but the only way you can enforce Rule 11 is if somebody contests it. Now, I know that there was some rumors out there about, Jesse Benton said that he gave their blessing to set up some type of victory party thing. Folks, don't hold this against me. I haven't researched it too much because it's really kind of insignificant to me. That he gave their blessing, the campaign gave the blessing for them to go ahead and do that. They even offered to set one up for Ron Paul, which they declined. But if the campaign does not protest or object, rule number 11 is going to be inapplicable because they're the only ones that can actually complain. Now, other state leadership, from the Republican Party can file complaints as well. But we need to get confirmation from the campaign whether or not they allowed this to happen and they gave their blessing and they don't mind it, or if we can actually take action because the RNC has broken rule number 11.
Okay. And then right here, Michigan wrote back. He said, so orders of the day is just informational?
Pardon me?
He said, so orders of the day is just informational, and so when they have adoption of the rules for that session was put forth, that would have required a 2/3 majority?
No. The orders of the day are typically preset for the convention. I mean, that kind of stuff is usually voted on at your district conventions, or it's actually done in committee. It depends on what your bylaws state, folks, and this is the one thing I want to mention, Paco. I can't give specifics on specific states if I don't know what's in your bylaws. Your bylaws are the absolute law of the land as far as referring to your party. Now, there's a distinct difference between state law and bylaws. Bylaws are essentially the rules that are put in place that were voted on by delegates just like you at particular points in time on basically the route and the type of business would be conducted in a certain manner within your local GOP. And this can vary from district and county to state to even the Republican National Convention. So it's important to understand what's in your bylaws. Now, state laws are completely different. There's nothing they can do to send you to jail, in the Republican Party should you break one of the bylaws, although there could be consequences for doing that, which, again, are also should be able to be found easily in your bylaws. Now, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But all the information you need on how your meeting should have been handled or set up should be in your bylaws. You should be able to read the proper procedures that are required to conduct your meeting. Now, this is one of the issues, Paco, and this is probably kind of interesting to talk about, is what happened in Oklahoma. I'll just give you one example. Oklahoma is contesting, obviously, the results of what happened when they continued their convention in the parking lot because the convention was illegally adjourned without the majority of the assembly to be able to do that. And when they continued, I read briefly the lawsuit that's been filed from the attorneys last night, and what they're contesting is that certain delegates were actually voted on without a roll call. Now, for those of you that don't know what a roll call is, this is essentially what's used in the Senate. And if it's in your bylaws that your delegates need to be elected by roll call vote, this is why. This is to determine the exact number of votes to make sure you don't have people that are not credentialed and certified delegates voting. So when they call a roll call, essentially what happens is they call the name of each specific person that is an actual delegate. And that person has to vote when their name is called. So each vote is counted individually. Apparently that did not take place in Oklahoma, and that's just one instance of understanding what's in your bylaws. Because
let's hold it right there, Steve, because we got a break coming up. I'm your host, Paco.
Okay.
You're listening to Occupy the Media. We'll be back.